Honestly, when you're in that grief avalanche, like you say, you don't always have to climb it alone, is what I would say. You don't always have to climb it today, all today. And I think that's where people get stuck. They think, I have to grieve it all today. I have to grieve everyone today. It's one breath, one cry, one choice at a time. And I think by naming our grief and what we're carrying, I think that is the first step to lightening our load.
Welcome to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a licensed psychologist and grief specialist, here to help change the conversation about grief and build community and connection while we all adjust to this new normal we are living. This podcast is for you if you are grieving or if you are supporting someone in a season of grief. I'm glad you're here.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited for today's guest. Joining us, we have Angie Hanson. She is a published author, certified grief coach, and the owner and creator of Butterflies and Halos, an online grief stationery company. Angie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, your journey through grief has been really layered and profound. You've had a number of losses. Do you mind sharing a bit about who your people were and how that influenced the direction that you've pivoted in this post-loss space?
Sure, yeah. Yes, so I've had several losses and I've lost my son and my husband and my brother within just a couple of years. And after losing all them, you're really not the same person anymore. And I just wasn't. And I had to rebuild from the ground up, really. And I had to do it with grief sitting really right at my feet. My son Garrett, he died June 27th of 2006. So we're coming up on his 19th anniversary here that he's been gone. And then about a year later, my husband, Jack, was diagnosed with cancer. He was diagnosed stage 4 ocular melanoma. And he battled that for about 16 months. And he died February 8th, 2009. And then about a month later, my brother, who had been battling a brain tumor for 5 years, he started having issues again. And my brother Seth then lost his battle on April 7th, 2009. So yeah, like within 2.5 years, I lost 3 of the most significant people in my life. And at the time, when our son died, our daughter Gracie was 4. And then when her daddy and uncle died, she was 6 and turning 7, right in between all that. I really didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I was upside or downside. And it was just a moment in my life. And then as I moved forward in life, I started thinking about how we show up for our friends. What would I have wanted my friends to do for me during my grief journey? And when my losses happened, that was before the big social media boom, right? There was Facebook out there, but it wasn't really that big a deal. There wasn't Instagram. There wasn't any of this. So there was not a lot of online support groups. I've always loved writing. I've always loved just like creating. I loved reading. So Butterflies and Halos was born. It took many years for that to be born. And I just wanted others to be seen in their pain, to hold a card and feel less alone. Creating helped me make meaning out of the unimaginable that I went through. So that's how it all began, was the losses of those 3 people. And then fast forward, actually, it's 3 years this week that I launched Butterflies and Halos.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
a really big deal.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing about your people. And yeah, my brother's name was Garrett.
Oh, I love that.
Wow, it's a good name.
It's a good sign.
When you are creating your content, I'm going to make sure to link it in the show notes so people can check out your cards. And then I guess personally, I'm curious, what's the vibe? Do you go more dark humor? How do you choose the phrases and the art to pair with that? I'm curious about that process.
Yeah, I do snark, sassy, dark humor. I do have heartfelt cards that pack a punch, but honestly, everything that I've written, I sat down and I am remarried. So my husband, Chance, We were sitting there one time and I was just like going through the stores. I'm like, why can't there be cards that say what we want to hear when we're grieving? I was tired of the with deepest sympathy. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Okay. I was just tired of that. And not that they're not meaningful words. It's just, it's redundant. And I actually still have all the cards from my son's loss and my husband's loss. So I pulled those out and I was kind of looking at them and I'm like, it was the same old images of a dove flying in the clouds, all the stuff. Well meaning, thoughtful cards. But I was just going through them and I thought, why can't we just say exactly how we feel? And so the first card that I actually created was, I don't know what to say. Let's go eat one of those damn casseroles. So I would give that to my best friend if her spouse died, right? And then I just paired it with a casserole image. And I would say that to her because I'm not going to give my best friend a card that says with deepest sympathy, right? And so I basically just did that. And then the second one I created was a play off of that was I didn't bring the casserole. I brought the wine, my PJs, and my listening heart. So it was just, and then I paired that with a wine bottle and a glass. And so, yeah, I just really, my cards speak. They speak to feel, not to fix.
I love that. I say that all the time with my clients. Grief is not something to fix or rescue. It's something to learn how to hold and move through because it doesn't go away. It just gets different. And we have to learn how to carry it through these different seasons and life situations. And we get all the platitudes or the Hallmark greeting card phrases are just can feel so dismissive.
Yeah.
But yeah, this sucks. Let's go eat one of the damn. Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I love that one.
In the midst of all of the creativity in the last 3 years, prior to that, there were probably a lot of different challenges that came up in navigating those 3 losses. You were also still parenting. You said you had a 4 and then she was 6, 7 years old. So parenting is hard enough as it is, let alone parenting through grief. What did that look like for you? And what would you maybe say to other parents who are trying to navigate that dynamic?
Yeah, that was really the hardest. I think it hit me. I did not do a good job after my son died. I will be the first one to admit that. But I had my husband there. My husband was there. And I was there, but I wasn't fully present for Gracie. And that breaks my heart. But I was still a mom and I was momming. And as my husband was going through cancer, and then after he died, and then after my brother died, I just realized that she deserves a good life. She deserves a beautiful life. How is that going to look? And so every day I had the choices. I had to get up and I had to parent and I had to be her mommy, and she deserved it. And when you're going through that, I've referenced this before, but it's like you're trying to hold water in a hurricane and like parenting. You don't always get it right. You just have to show up honestly. And I've always told my daughter that I'm hurting too. I'm here. We've always been open about talking about our people, say their names, say what we miss. That is the biggest thing that I tell people so today my daughter's 23 years old. I'm remarried and we still get to talk about all our people. We get to honor our people. We get to do all that because I think I built that foundation so young. And I taught her just to be open and honest about your feelings. And I would tell other grieving parents, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present and you have to be real.
Absolutely. I'm sure you hear this as a grief coach as well. Is it okay if I grieve in front of my kid? And it's yes, please. Like model grieving. Name that you're sad and name what you need or think you might need or what you want to do. It's not going to overwhelm them. It models that the full spectrum of emotions is okay. And I think that's amazing that you were able to gift Gracie that space to just feel whatever was showing up and not hide her grief away. Because I think that happens so often, right? Like it's the secret.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen this and realized this too, just about how back in the days, like I was really young when the first tragedy ever happened, my uncle was killed in an accident. And so I think I was 6 at the time, but it was my dad's brother, but no one talked about it. You didn't talk about grief. You didn't do anything. So that just not talking about it. And then if it's a parent or even a sibling and you're not supposed to talk about it in the household, it bubbles up, say like when you turn 23, it starts bubbling up and there's problems. So yeah, you have to keep it open.
Yeah, for sure. We're big Great British Bake Off fans in our house. So I always think of grief and bread week and when they have to do the scoring on the bread because the air has to get out and that's grief in our
Yeah.
bodies. And it's like, it's gonna make a way out. So we can control how it comes out by giving it space to breathe.
Yeah.
Or it's gonna rip it and you don't know what and how it's gonna
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I love that one.
share. It's
Yeah.
So another really important thing I think to talk about is compounding grief and
Mm,
how we can have one loss and then another one happens. And if we haven't really processed that first one, they link up and compound. And you had that grief avalanche over that 2-year-ish period.
yeah.
How did that show up for you? And what kind of helped you in navigating that?
Honestly, when you're in that grief avalanche, like you say, you don't always have to climb it alone, is what I would say. You don't always have to climb it today, all today. And I think that's where people get stuck. They think, I have to grieve it all today. I have to grieve everyone today. It's one breath, one cry, one choice at a time. And I think by naming our grief and what we're carrying, I think that is the first step to lightening our load. And so for me, that looked like, who am I grieving today? And so I took up journaling really after my son had died. When the tears wouldn't stop at night, I would get up, I'd journal. And I would journal until the tears stopped. And whether journaling looks like doodling or whether it looks like words or just a scribbled mess, that's what I would do. And so after all my losses, I didn't know who I was grieving. I was just this ball of yarn that looked like a mess. And so I had to say, okay, whoever I would think of that day first, for example, I would say it was Garrett. I would be like, okay, today I'm going to grieve Garrett and I'm only going to think about him. So for me, separating those people, my grief towards them really was the way that moved me forward each day. And it took about 6 months to finally get beyond that compounded grief where I was able to not have them all jumbled up in my head. So it was tricky, but for me, I just really had to separate each individual person because I didn't feel like I was doing any of them a favor by grieving all of them at once. I felt like I had to separate them.
No, I think that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
The collective weight of those 3 losses, that's crippling. That's
Yeah.
crippling. And
Yeah.
being able to tease them out, untangling those 3 different balls of yarn and
Mhm.
it's that big knot. And it's no, we're just gonna focus on we're gonna focus on Garrett's green thread today.
Yep.
And maybe tomorrow we'll look at Seth's purple thread and then go
Yeah.
from there. I think
Yeah.
that's really smart and very intuitive. Like your body knew what it needed, that it was overwhelmed and needed
Yeah.
to figure out a way through.
Yeah, and I give credit to honestly my journaling through Garrett. Like I said, that first year after his death was not perfect at all. It wasn't pretty or perfect. It was hard, the hardest phase of my life, but it also gave me what I needed to grieve my husband and my brother. So it it gave me that platform a little bit. And so I was able to look back at my journal entries from writing Garrett and I saw how far I had come from the first day to 6 months later to a year later. I saw. And so I knew I could. I knew I could do the work. And how did that look? So it really was, I do give credit to my journaling.
I love that. You found the right medium to metabolize out
Yeah.
all of those things. Yeah. You shared a little bit about your cards and your amazing brand. It's hard being in this grief centered space. We have our own losses that come up as we're holding space for others. And you actually make creative things to help honor that grief with which I just think is so amazing. So I guess my question is, how do you protect your energy while running a grief centered business?
It's called Boundaries and Coffee. And honestly, I always remind myself that I can't pour from an empty cup, right? So we know that. I can't do that. So I'm coming into a very griefy month with Garrett's birthday. He was born on June 21st. He died 6 days after his first birthday. So he died June 27th, 2006. And so I have to schedule breaks. So what that looks like for me grief coaching right now, I may block out a lot of time. I'm going to schedule those breaks. I say no, and no is a complete sentence. I really let myself feel my own stuff too. And grief work is so sacred and what we all are doing. But I've just really learned not to place myself into their grief energy. And I take it and I try to just walk along beside them. So for me, I really just center myself through that with the boundaries, saying no, scheduling breaks. And if I do feel that I'm affected by someone's story or someone's own grief, I go to my community of other coaches and talk to them about what should I do. So you have to build that community of support. So
I love that. So leaning into those resources, creating your own care plan,
yeah.
knowing it's going to be a griefier month. That's so smart.
Yeah, I try to be smart, but
And like you never know if a certain month is going to be. June is a tough month for you.
yeah.
And some years it might be more acute than other years where it's,
Yeah.
oh, I made all this plan and I was so intentional and I wrote it well. Like I was okay versus like other years where it's just like, where did these feelings come from? And how am I going to get through like the next hour?
Exactly. But it's crazy because the first 6 months of the year are always you're gearing up for great business, Q1, Q2, right? What are we going to do? Planning for it. The first 6 months for me are all my griefy days. So everyone's anniversaries and birthdays are all the first 6 months. And so for me, I'm slower at getting to Q3 and Q4, but that's okay. I give myself grace for it because I am not here to the be all person. I am here just like everybody else. I understand. I have the empathy. I've lived it. I get it. So I just try to really, I just every day. And I'm so far out, 19 years for my son and 16 years for my husband and my brother, that it's different. It doesn't weigh as heavy and the grief has changed and evolved and it's less stress, less hurt.
Yeah, so I'm 16 years in November.
Okay.
And yeah, it's the grief is still in there. And every now and then there's a reminder. And I think the acuity, the intensity of that is definitely less over time. Last year was tough. 15
Yeah.
was tough, but I
Yeah.
think it's those like bigger
Mhm.
milestone years, they just land a little different. I'm curious how my 16 year is going to go. But yeah, I think I was talking with someone else and they shared this really great visual by Lois Tonkin where you've got your grief circle on this piece of paper and it's almost like in the beginning there's no room for anything but that, but then over time it's like space builds around it and then it's like that floating shape on a TV screen
Yeah.
bounces on your boundary, your parameters, so to speak. And it's, oh yeah, the grief's still in there, but maybe there's further time between when it's hitting those edges and you're aware of it.
Yeah, that's a great visual for sure. And that's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, is it going to hit that perfect corner and crumble?
Exactly.
Okay, so you've also written a book. You've written a memoir,
Oh.
Chapters of a Resilient Heart. We'll link it in the show notes. And the cards you create are also quite rooted in storytelling. So I guess what role has storytelling played in your own healing? And why do you think that's such a powerful grief tool for others?
Honestly, like I said, storytelling saved me. I didn't really know I was telling the story when I was journaling, but also when my husband Jack was sick, we had a Caring Bridge site and he actually wrote and journaled in it. So we could tell all our friends and family what was going on with him. And having that really helped my storytelling. And it helped push me. So for me, storytelling, it gives shape to the shapeless, right? We don't know what's happening. And when we tell our stories, we turn our pain into something that connects with other people. And so me sharing my book or my cards, I am basically, it gives other people a lifeline. I was able to put in the book, my chapters of a resilient heart, I was able to put Jack's journaling in there. So in his chapter of my memoir, his voice speaks of what a cancer patient is going through after losing their son and how they're trying to hold up their family. Really just the storytelling, writing my memoir, creating the cards. Like I said, it gives shape to the shapeless for me. I didn't know what it looked like. And I just wanted to turn my pain into something that really connects with other people.
Absolutely. Grief
Yeah.
can feel so isolating. And so there's so much comfort and connection in reading stories and being able to see part of your story in other
Yeah.
stories. And for listeners that don't know, Angie and I actually were just in a compilation together. Trunis Goggins's Stories of Friends and Family Loss. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the good places. So be
Yeah.
sure to check out Angie's story there as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's writing a book, designing a card, coaching others, creativity has clearly become a part of your grief language. How do you use creative expression to help make sense of what feels senseless? I'm fascinated by that.
Creativity is how I talk to my grief, I guess you could say. And how it talks back to me is through that creativity. And I'm currently doing I write a blog, a weekly blog, and I'm currently doing a series of what's in your toolkit. Yeah, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like, what is in your grief toolkit? So just like when we have a leaky faucet or anything, we know we go to our tool chest to grab a wrench or whatever we need to fix it. So what tools are you going to have readily available for you when you're going through your grief? And so creativity is actually one of them. And basically, whether it's writing or painting or crafting or planting or dancing, that's all creativity, right? And it doesn't have to be beautiful, this big, beautiful thing, right? It just has to be healing to you and it just has to be yours. Creativity is a huge outlet. And for me, creativity, it gives grief a voice. And when you can't talk about it, you can color it, or you can draw it, or you can doodle it, you can write it, or it gives you control over what you're feeling. When everything else feels out of your hands, creation gives you something you can shape, whether, like I said, whether it's just a doodle or planting or whatever you're doing. And then it also allows expression without explanation.
Mm.
You don't have to sit there and wonder, why am I doing this? And no, there's just no need to justify your pain when you're trying to be creative. And you just have to channel it. And I just honestly believe that creativity is, for me, is the meaning of processing something that words can't hold. And for me, it was really just going into that creativity. And in my toolkit, I have the creativity, I have the humor, I have the community. So there's so many different things that we have to build in our toolkit. And creativity is really one of the biggest expressions that we should have in there.
I love. I guess what I hear a lot on my end is in that first 6 months, first year, first 3 years is
Mm.
there's this, it's like maybe they were creative before and then it's dried up. It's a struggle to access it, whether through pain or fear or overwhelm. Mm, Do you have any strategies for getting the engine firing again?
You just have to start. Like I said, journal, like if you're journaling, for me, it just, with my cards, it was about 10 years later that I started doing this. And it was honestly just watching and hearing about so many people that had lost loved ones. And how do we show up and walk along beside those people? And if we can show up with just a little creativity, and how can they find that? They just have to start. What brings them joy? What makes them smile? What do they get a giggle out of? If it's a silly rom com or whatever it is, like maybe journal about what kind of made you laugh about that. What made you laugh? Was it something they said? And go off that. I have a pen and paper handy everywhere I go. And wherever I sit in my house, I have a pen and paper. And or even like you said, baking. Do the baking and create those slats to let that air breathe out of that bread. And it's the same thing. You have to start. You just need to find your outlet, and you don't have to have a huge talent at all, because I did not have that. If you ask my English teachers or anybody in high school, my art teachers, they'd be like, "What is Angie doing?" So I, it wasn't natural for me. I guess grief gave me this, and I have to do something with it. Like, grief gave me the pen, honestly, and it and you just have to really sit with yourself, and we have to try not to overthink it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be messy.
Yeah.
You can switch mediums, and maybe what got the engine moving pre-loss, maybe you need a different strategy for getting that going.
Yeah, for sure.
And starting small, right? I know for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't do it perfectly, then what? Then I'm not going to start.
Yeah.
And so I think making it small can be a good first step.
And I always tell people too, if you get out of bed today and you decide to sit on the couch and you haven't showered for 3 days and you turn on a funny show and you giggle, you are healing. You are healing. It looks different for everyone, but getting up every day and just moving that one step forward. And if you're just drinking coffee, watching silly Hallmark shows, crying, that's your therapy and healing, and that's okay. Yeah.
So one of the phrases that you have mentioned is you've shifted from saying, I have to live with this, to I get to carry their light forward, which I think is just such a beautiful reframe. What does that mean for you now? And how might someone listening start to connect that to that kind of shift?
Yeah. It means living in a way that reflects who they were. And my son didn't get to live a long life. And how do I get to live for him? And it's not about moving on, it's about moving with. And honestly, my husband was a bigger than life man. He had a personality that was so huge, and he was a volunteer firefighter. He worked a corporate job. He traveled. He had his own small business. He just did all this. And so how do I carry their light forward? I do what they would want me to do. I would do what they would do. I have to live for my son because he didn't get to live a full life. And I don't know what that would have looked like, but every year when it comes to June, for example, I can do the things that I think that he would be doing at that age. So I get to carry his light forward. And for example, I do random acts of kindness since his birthday and death date are so close together. I do random acts of kindness. And we're in Nebraska, so we host the College World Series, which is the college baseball, and we've hosted it forever. We go down to a game usually, and it's always around this time. It starts this Friday, and we give out money. Like, I have little cards made up that are business cards, and I have his picture on there, a little quote or poem about him on there, and then why I'm giving them. And I just put $20 in an envelope, and I just pick people and I give money to. So that's carrying their light forward, right? And everything I write, anytime I speak, any podcast that I do, if I'm supporting anybody through my grief coaching, I'm doing it all while carrying their love forward. And that's the way I get to carry the love and their light for Garrett, Jack, and Seth into this world. And that's what I get to do now.
I love that. That's that carrying the torch, carrying the light.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such a great reframe. And then I guess as we start to wrap up this conversation, what would you say are one or two key takeaways that you would want listeners to walk away from this conversation with?
Honestly, I would say you are not alone. I know people have heard this probably a million times, but find somebody that will sit with you and listen to you. And you have to take just the small steps to move forward. And it's not easy. It's going to be a lifelong journey of grief and love, but you also get to have both and. You get to carry that. You get to have both. And I just honestly want people to know that nobody in this community that I know of is here to fix you. We're here to honor your feelings. We're here to support you, to just love you, to listen. And I don't think there is anyone that has it right or has it perfect. And you just have to do what, is laying on your heart the most and talk about that. And like I said, find your community of people that will really listen. Yeah.
So if people are interested in connecting with you, want to work with you, want to get your cards, what's the best way for them to connect with you? And then do you have any upcoming projects you want to share about?
Yeah, I'm at butterfliesandhalos.com. So that's my website that has all my information on there. You can go on there and I have my books that I've written. I've done a couple other anthologies. And so there, and then my grief coaching is on there and you can see what that looks like. I have my blog on my website. On socials, I'm at Butterflies and Halos. And honestly, currently, my project is working on my holiday line of cards. So those have to be, crazy as it is, those have to be done here in the next few weeks because buyers for retail start buying in July. Yes. So that's what I'm in Christmas mode. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm working on. But yeah, Christmas and my cards are not, I do have a few. Oh, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. But I have my cards are for the grievers and the holidays, any holiday and most days are the hardest days. But holidays are so very hard and they hit so differently when you're missing somebody. And my cards are just honestly geared towards those people grieving. And I always tell people, if you're sending out 100 plus holiday cards to people with your family photo saying Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or whatever you want to say, just think of that one friend that has lost somebody and send them one of my cards because it says exactly what they want to hear. They're going to realize, oh my gosh, they really thought of me and they're thinking of me and my loss this year. And it just, they're so simple. So that is what that's what I'm doing right now. I don't have any big projects right now. I've taken just like a little break. I'm just kind of pushing the brakes a little and just writing here and there, doing my blogs, doing my blog series. Definitely check out my blog series because they have been on fire lately.
I will absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out myself.
Yes.
I think you mentioned you're doing a grief toolkit
Yeah.
series in your blog. And I think we can always use more
Yes.
strategies and resources as we're trying to figure out what fits for us. Because like we've talked about, each person's grief is so different and unique. And so sometimes we need different tools to support those different grief spaces.
Yeah. So that one is great because it's, like I said, it's about 8 weeks. And so I've done community. I've done why is humor. These are feelings or they're not like big things. Community, feelings, humor, creativity, all these things. And and people can go back and actually read some of the ones. I did a Lenten series that was, what are we giving up in grief? Which was really huge and went over very well. Was we always people give up maybe like chocolate or ice cream or whatever it is. But when you're in grief, what are you giving up in grief? Are you giving up the anger, the resentment, the hate, what are you giving up? So that one is an extremely great series as well. Yeah.
Oh, Angie, this has been such a fun conversation.
Yes.
Fun as grief can be.
You know what? Like I said, humor matters. It's a pressure release. So we got to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you so much for taking the time and just being such a thoughtful guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate everything that you're doing as well.
Right. You.
Yes.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember to be kind to yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
That's it for today's episode of Grief is the New Normal. If this conversation resonated with you or you think it might benefit someone else, please share it. Sharing can open doors to healing, understanding, and normalizing these griefy conversations. If you're craving deeper insights or ongoing support, consider signing up for the Grief Gap newsletter. It's packed with resources, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate your grief journey. Visit the website www.griefisthenewnormal.com to subscribe. For those who prefer a more personal touch to their healing process, check out my grief journal, Authentically Unapologetic. It's designed to help you explore your grief on your own terms with prompts and exercises that encourage reflection and growth. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and I look forward to our next meaningful conversation. Our soothing tunes are provided by the Data Chorus. If you're interested in sharing your story, collaborating, or learning more, please email me at hello@griefisthenewnormal.com. You can also stream the episodes on YouTube for more engaging content. Until next time, keep exploring your grief with intention and support, remembering you don't have to do this alone.